She knelt on cold marble for 10 hours. No food. No water. No mercy. The Alpha thought he was breaking her spirit. He had no idea he was awakening something that had been sleeping for 300 years. Something that would crack the earth beneath his feet and end his reign in a single night. The marble floor was cold against her knees. Elena could feel every ridge, every imperfection pressing into her skin. The throne room stretched before her like a cathedral of suffering. 20 pillars rose toward vaulted ceilings where shadows gathered like spectators. Alpha Kaine stood above her, his presence crushing the air from the room. She had refused him 3 times. 3 times she had said no to his claim. 3 times she had dared to meet his eyes when others looked away. Now she would pay. "Kneel until I grant you permission to rise," he had said. His voice had been silk wrapped around steel. That was 6 hours ago. Her legs had gone numb after the first hour. The trembling had started in the second. By the 3rd hour, sweat had begun to trace lines down her spine despite the cold. The other pack members had filtered through the throne room throughout the day. Some averted their eyes. Others watched with a mixture of pity and relief that it was not them. No one spoke. No one dared. Elena focused on breathing. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. She would not break. She would not beg. Alpha Kaine circled her like a predator examining wounded prey. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous space. Each click of his boots against marble was a countdown to something she could not name. "You still have not learned," he said, stopping directly in front of her. She could see his polished black shoes in her peripheral vision. "I do not ask for obedience, Elena. I require it." Her jaw clenched. The muscles in her neck strained as she fought to keep her head bowed. Every instinct screamed at her to look up, to meet his challenge with fire. But that would mean giving him what he wanted. Submission born of spirit breaking was sweeter to alphas like him than submission given freely. 8 hours, Kaine announced to the room. A few pack members had gathered to witness what would happen next. 8 hours she has knelt. 8 hours she has remained defiant even in this position of supplication. He crouched down beside her. She could smell his scent now, pine and smoke and something darker underneath. Something that made her wolf recoil. "Tell me, Elena, what will break first? Your body or your pride?" She said nothing. Her silence was the only weapon she had left. Kaine stood abruptly. "Then we continue." Another hour passed. Elena's vision had started to blur at the edges. Her hands, clasped in front of her, had gone white at the knuckles. Pain radiated from her knees up through her thighs, a fire that consumed rational thought. She began to count her heartbeats to stay conscious. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rhythm became a meditation. 5, 7. She was dimly aware of whispers around her. The pack members were concerned now. This had gone beyond discipline. This was cruelty. "Alpha," a voice spoke up. It was Marcus, one of Kaine's beta enforcers. "Perhaps she has learned her lesson." The crack of Kaine's hand across Marcus's face silenced the room. "When I want your opinion, I will beat it out of you," Kaine snarled. No one else spoke after that. Elena's wolf stirred inside her. It was weak from their forced stillness, but it was angry. So angry. She could feel it clawing at her insides, demanding she shift, demanding she fight. But shifting now would be the final insult. It would mean war within the pack. And she was not ready for war. Not yet. The 10th hour arrived like a funeral bell. Elena's body had begun to shake uncontrollably. Not from weakness, but from the effort of containing her wolf. The beast inside her had grown frantic. It sensed what her human mind refused to acknowledge. They were dying like this. Slowly. Painfully. Alpha Kaine had returned to his throne. He watched her with the dispassionate interest of a scientist observing an experiment. "You are stronger than I anticipated," he admitted. There was no praise in his voice. Only calculation. "That makes you either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous." He stood again. This time, He descended the steps of his dais with deliberate slowness. Each step resonated through the floor, through Elena's bones, through the very foundations of the building. "I will give you one final chance," Kaine said. He was close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Swear your loyalty to me. Publicly. Completely. And this ends." Elena's lips cracked as she opened them. Her voice came out as a rasp, dry and brittle. "No." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Kaine's eyes flashed gold. His alpha power erupted outward, a wave of dominance that crashed over every wolf in the room. They all dropped to their knees, compelled by instinct and hierarchy. All except Elena. She was already kneeling. But now, the pressure of his power pressed down on her like a physical weight. Her shoulders bowed under it. Her spine curved. Her forehead dropped toward the floor. Still she did not submit. Inside her mind, she repeated a single thought like a prayer. "I am not yours. I am not yours. I am not yours." Kaine's power intensified. The air itself seemed to thicken. Several pack members whimpered. One woman began to cry. Elena's wolf howled in agony. The pressure was unbearable, crushing her from the inside out. Her bones creaked. Her muscles spasmed. Blood began to drip from her nose, spattering the white marble beneath her. And then something inside her snapped. Not her will. Not her spirit. Something else. Something primal and ancient. A power she had not known she possessed surged upward from the core of her being. It was not her wolf. It was something older. Something that had been sleeping in her bloodline for generations. The air around Elena began to shimmer. Heat radiated from her skin. The blood on the marble turned to steam. Kaine stumbled backward, his eyes widening. "What are you?" he whispered. Elena's head lifted. Not because she chose to, but because something else was lifting it for her. Her eyes, when they met his, were not the brown they had been. They were silver. Pure molten silver. And they were furious. The ground beneath her began to tremble. Small at first, like the footsteps of something approaching from far away. Then stronger. The marble floor developed hairline fractures that spread outward from where she knelt. Pack members scrambled backward. Kaine's expression shifted from shock to fear. The cracks in the floor widened. They raced across the throne room like lightning, splitting the perfect marble into a web of destruction. One crack ran directly beneath Alpha Kaine's feet. He leaped aside just as the floor buckled. The sound of stone breaking was deafening. Chunks of marble the size of fists began to fall into darkness below. And still, Elena knelt at the center of it all. The power flowing through her was agony and ecstasy intertwined. It burned through every nerve, every cell, remaking her from the inside out. She could feel the earth itself responding to her rage. The foundations of the building groaned. Dust rained down from the vaulted ceiling. One of the 20 pillars developed a crack that spiraled from base to capital. "Stop this!" Kaine roared, but his voice had lost its authority. For the first time in his reign, he sounded afraid. Elena tried to speak, but the power had taken her voice. She could only watch as the destruction spread. The throne itself, that symbol of Kaine's absolute power, began to split down the middle. The ornate stone carved with wolves and moons fractured like it was made of ice. Half of it toppled forward with a crash that shook the entire building. Pack members fled the throne room. Their footsteps echoed in panicked rhythm as they ran for exits. Only Marcus remained, standing at a safe distance. His expression a mixture of awe and terror. The cracks in the floor had created a chasm. It ran in a perfect line from where Elena knelt to where Kaine now stood against the far wall. The alpha of the Shadowfang pack, the most feared leader in 3 territories, was trapped. The ground shook again, harder this time. A sound like thunder rolled up from the depths below. And then, from the chasm came light. Not fire, though it glowed like embers. Not lightning, though it flickered and pulsed. It was silver light, the same color as Elena's transformed eyes. It rose from the broken earth like morning mist. Where it touched the remaining marble, flowers bloomed. Impossible, beautiful flowers that should not exist in this place of stone and dominance. Moonflowers with petals like fresh snow. They grew between the cracks, transforming destruction into creation. Elena felt the power beginning to recede. It was draining back into whatever deep well it had come from. Her eyes faded from silver back to brown. The trembling in the earth quieted to stillness. But the damage was done. The throne room was destroyed. The symbol of Kaine's power lay in ruins. And Elena, who had been forced to kneel for 10 hours, now stood. Her legs should not have been able to support her. Her body should have been broken. But the power had healed her as it had torn through her. She stood straight and tall, surrounded by moonflowers and rubble. Kaine stared at her from across the chasm. His face was pale. His hands, usually so steady, trembled at his sides. "What are you?" he asked again. This time his voice was barely a whisper. Elena met his eyes. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "I am what you tried to break," she said. "I am what you could not bend." She took a step forward. The ground did not crack beneath her feet. Instead, more moonflowers bloomed where she walked. "I am the consequence of your cruelty, Alpha Kaine." Marcus fell to one knee. Not in submission to Kaine, but in reverence to her. "Luna," he whispered. The word sent shockwaves through what remained of the room. Luna. Not a title Kaine had ever allowed. Not a position he had ever acknowledged. But Marcus had named her, and the truth of it resonated in the bones of every wolf who heard it. Elena had not submitted. She had transcended. Kaine's mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in his life, the Alpha had no response. No threat. No command. No power that could match what he had just witnessed. Elena turned her back on him. It was the ultimate insult. To turn away from an Alpha was to declare them beneath notice. She walked through the ruined throne room, her footsteps silent on broken marble. Moonflowers grew in her wake, transforming the hall of dominance into a garden of defiance. When she reached the massive doors, they opened without her touching them. Beyond them, the entire pack had gathered. They had felt the earthquake. They had heard the thunder. Now they saw her emerge, wreathed in silver light, flowers blooming where she walked. The pack parted before her like water before a ship. Some dropped to their knees. Others simply stared, unable to process what they were seeing. Elena walked through them all. She walked past the pack houses, past the training grounds, past the boundaries of Shadowfang territory. She walked until the moon rose full and bright above her. Only then did she stop. Only then did she allow herself to feel the weight of what had happened. Her wolf stirred inside her, no longer frantic but curious. It had felt the power too. It wanted to understand what they had become. Elena looked back at the compound. In the distance, she could see the ruined throne room. Even from here, she could see the moonflowers glowing in the darkness. They would not die. She knew that somehow. They would remain. A permanent reminder of the day an Alpha learned that some wolves could not be broken. They could only be awakened. Behind her, footsteps approached. Elena did not turn. She knew who it was by scent alone. Marcus, the beta enforcer who had tried to speak up for her. Who had called her Luna. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Elena considered the question. What had happened now? She had no pack. She had no territory. She had walked away from everything she had known. But she had something more valuable. She had herself. Whole. Unbroken. Free. "Now," Elena said, her voice carrying on the wind, "I find out what I was meant to be." The moon shone brighter above her. The silver light in her eyes flickered back to life, just for a moment. And somewhere deep in the earth, in the places between stone and root, something ancient smiled. The balance had shifted. A new Luna had risen. And the old order would never be the same. Miles away, in the destroyed throne room, Alpha Kaine stood among the ruins of his power. The moonflowers glowed around him, beautiful and terrible. He reached down to crush one beneath his boot. But when his foot touched the delicate petals, pain shot through him like lightning. He jerked back with a cry. The flower remained undamaged, untouched, as permanent as the change Elena had wrought in the world. Kaine looked at the chasm that split his throne room in half. He looked at the flowers that would not die. He looked at the empty space where his throne had been. And for the first time in his long life, the Alpha understood fear. True fear. Because somewhere out there, walking under the moon, was a power he could not control. A wolf he could not break. A Luna who had knelt until the ground itself cracked beneath him. And she was only just beginning to understand what she could do. The night wind carried her scent away. But Kaine knew he had not seen the last of Elena. She would return. Not as a supplicant. Not as a member of his pack. But as something else entirely. Something the wolf world had not seen in generations. A true Luna. Born not from submission, but from the refusal to break. And when she returned, the old order would shatter just as completely as the marble floor. Just as irreversibly as the throne that now lay in pieces. The age of alphas who ruled through fear and dominance was ending. Elena had seen to that. One 10-hour vigil. One word of defiance. One awakening that shook the earth. That was all it took to change everything. In the forest beyond Shadowfang territory, Elena walked on. The moonflowers followed her path, marking her journey. Marcus walked beside her now. Having chosen to leave his Alpha and follow this new Luna. Others would come. She could feel it. Wolves who had been broken would find her. Wolves who had been cast out would seek her light. She would build something new. Not a pack built on dominance and fear. But a family forged in freedom and choice. The ground hummed beneath her feet. The earth remembered her. It would answer when she called. And she had so much more to learn. So much more to become. The night stretched ahead. Full of possibility. Full of power waiting to be claimed. Full of a future unwritten. Elena smiled. For the first time in 10 hours she smiled. And the moon smiled back. Elena had been walking for 3 days when the dreams began. They came in fragments at first, scattered images that made no sense. A woman with silver hair standing in a circle of stones. Wolves bowing before a throne made of living trees. A pack that stretched across valleys and mountains, united not by fear but by something stronger. Each night the dreams grew clearer. Each morning Elena woke with knowledge she had not possessed before. Marcus noticed the change in her. "You are different," he said on the 4th morning. They had made camp beside a stream that ran clear and cold from the mountains. "You carry yourself differently now." Elena knelt by the water, studying her reflection. Her face looked the same, but her eyes held depths they had not contained before. "I am remembering," she said softly. "Remembering what? Things I never knew. Things that were buried in my blood." She touched the water and it rippled outward in perfect circles. Where the ripples passed, the water glowed faintly silver. Marcus inhaled sharply. "The old stories," he whispered. "My grandmother told them when I was young. Stories of Lunas who could speak to the earth itself." Elena stood, water dripping from her fingers. Each drop that hit the ground sprouted a tiny moonflower. They were not just stories. She looked at Marcus, really looked at him. He was strong, loyal, and he had given up everything to follow her. But he was afraid. She could smell it on him, sharp and acrid beneath his attempt at calm. "You do not have to stay," Elena said gently. "I did not ask you to leave your pack." Marcus shook his head. "Kaine stopped being my Alpha the moment he struck me for defending you. I chose to follow you because I believe you are what our world needs." He hesitated, then continued. "But I will admit, I do not understand what you are becoming." "Neither do I," Elena admitted. She looked toward the mountains in the distance. Something called to her from that direction. A pull she could not explain but could not ignore. "But I know where we need to go." They traveled higher into the mountains. The air grew thin and cold. Marcus struggled with the altitude, But Elena felt stronger with each step. The earth sang to her here. She could feel the ancient stones beneath the soil, could sense the roots of trees that had stood for centuries. On the seventh day they found the stones. They rose from a clearing like teeth, gray and weathered and covered in symbols Elena somehow understood. "This is a sacred place," Marcus said, his voice hushed. "I can feel it." Elena approached the largest stone. The symbols carved into its surface glowed faintly as she drew near. She reached out and pressed her palm against the cold surface. The world exploded into light. Images flooded her mind faster than thought. She saw the first Lunas, women who had walked beside the first Alphas as equals, not subordinates. She saw a time when packs were balanced, when strength was tempered by wisdom, when dominance was checked by compassion. She saw the slow corruption of that balance. Alphas growing more powerful, more controlling. Lunas being pushed aside, their gifts suppressed, their voices silenced. She saw the last true Luna standing in this very circle, surrounded by stones, as she poured her power into the earth itself, hiding it, protecting it, waiting for someone worthy to reclaim it. "I have been waiting for you," a voice said. Elena spun around. An old woman stood at the edge of the stone circle. She had not been there a moment before. Her hair was silver white, her face lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. Marcus moved to stand between Elena and the stranger, but Elena placed a hand on his arm. "She means no harm." "How do you know?" Marcus demanded. "Because I can feel her. She is like me." The old woman smiled. "Not quite like you, child. I am an echo, a remnant of what was." She stepped into the circle and the stones pulsed with light. "You are what will be." Elena's heart raced. "Who are you?" "I am Mora. I was the last Luna to hold the old power before it was hidden away." The old woman circled the stones slowly, trailing her fingers across their surfaces. "For 300 years I have lingered here, neither alive nor dead, waiting for the bloodline to awaken again." 300 years. Marcus breathed. Mora nodded. "The Alphas of my time grew drunk on power. They forgot that leadership requires balance. They began to see Lunas as possessions, not partners." Her expression darkened. "I refused to accept this. I gathered the remaining Lunas and we performed a ritual. We took our power and buried it deep in the earth, in the blood, in the bones of the world." She looked at Elena with eyes that held centuries of sorrow. "We made it so that the power would only awaken again when it was truly needed. When an Alpha's cruelty became so great that the earth itself would respond." Elena understood now. "Kaine. What he did to me. What he has done to countless others," Mora corrected. "You are not the first wolf he has broken, only the first strong enough to survive it. Your pain, your defiance, your refusal to submit even unto death, that was the key." The old woman reached out and took Elena's hands. Her touch was cold as winter frost. "The power chose you, Elena. Not because you were perfect, but because you were unbending." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I do not know how to be what you were. I do not know how to use this power. That is why I am here," Mora said. "I will teach you what I can in the time that remains." "Time?" Elena asked. "How much time?" Mora's smile was sad. "I have lingered for 3 centuries, child. I am tired. Once I pass on what you need to know, I will finally rest." She released Elena's hands and moved to the center of the stone circle. "Come. We have much to discuss and dawn will come too quickly." Elena sat across from Mora while Marcus kept watch at the edge of the circle. The old Luna began to speak, and as she did, knowledge flowed into Elena like water filling a vessel. She learned that Luna power was not about dominance or control. It was about connection. A Luna could feel the pack bond in a way no Alpha ever could. She could sense the pain, the joy, the needs of every wolf connected to her. She could heal wounds that went deeper than flesh. She could mend broken bonds and strengthen weak ones. But the power came with a price. "You will feel everything," Mora warned. Every hurt, every betrayal, every moment of suffering in your pack. It will tear at you, threaten to drown you in empathy. How do you bear it? Elena asked. You learn to be a vessel, not a victim. You feel the pain but you do not hold it. You let it flow through you and transform it into something else. Healing. Understanding. Strength. Mora taught her to sense the earth's energy. To draw power from the stones, the trees, the water. To give that power back when it was needed. You are a bridge, Mora explained. Between wolf and earth, between pack and land, between what is and what could be. As the night deepened, Mora showed Elena how to extend her awareness. How to feel the presence of other wolves, even at great distances. Elena gasped as her consciousness expanded. She could feel Marcus, a steady flame of loyalty just meters away. She could feel scattered wolves across the mountains, some alone, some in small groups. And far to the south, she could feel Shadowfang pack. Kaine's presence was like a black hole, pulling everything toward him, consuming light and warmth. But around him she felt others. Wolves who were afraid. Wolves who were suffering. Wolves who dreamed of freedom but did not dare hope for it. They are waiting for you, Mora said softly. Even if they do not know it yet. Elena pulled her awareness back to her own body. I am not ready to face him. Not yet, Mora agreed. But you will be. First you must build your own pack. You must find the broken ones, the cast-outs, the ones who have been told they are worthless. She stood, and moonlight seemed to cling to her silver hair. You must show them a different way. Not through speeches or promises but through action. Through the bonds you forge and the sanctuary you create. Mora began to fade, becoming translucent. My time is ending, she said, but there was peace in her voice. Wait, Elena cried, standing quickly. There is so much more I need to learn. You will learn it by living it, Mora replied. Trust yourself, Elena. Trust the power that flows through you. Trust the earth that answers your call. She was barely visible now, more spirit than substance. One last gift I give you. The knowledge of the old pack bonds, the rituals that create true family from strangers. Use them well. Images flashed through Elena's mind. Ancient ceremonies performed under full moons. Words of binding spoken over shared blood. The weaving of souls into a tapestry stronger than any alpha's dominance. When the visions cleared, Mora was gone. Only moonlight remained in the stone circle, and a sense of profound peace. Marcus approached slowly. What happened? Elena turned to him, and her eyes glowed silver in the darkness. I learned what I am meant to do. She looked toward the south, toward Shadowfang territory. But first we build something new. Something Kaine and alphas like him have never seen. A pack, Marcus asked. A family, Elena corrected. A sanctuary for those who have nowhere else to go. She smiled, and it was fierce and beautiful. And when we are strong enough, when we have shown the wolf world that there is another way, then we will return to Shadowfang. To challenge Kaine. Elena shook her head. Not to challenge him. To free those trapped under his cruelty. To offer them a choice he never did. She placed her hand on one of the ancient stones. It hummed with approval beneath her touch. This will be our home. These mountains will shelter us. And any wolf who needs refuge will find it here. Marcus knelt before her. Then I am the first to pledge myself to your pack, Luna Elena. Not through dominance or fear, but through choice and loyalty freely given. Elena felt the bond snap into place between them. It was nothing like the forced pack bond she had known under Kaine. This was warm, willing, a thread of gold that connected their spirits. She could feel Marcus's determination, his hope, his absolute conviction that she would succeed. I accept your pledge, Elena said formally. And I swear to honor it. To protect you, to value you, to never demand more than you can freely give. The stone circle blazed with silver light. The ancient magic recognized what was happening. The first bonds of a new pack forged the old way, the right way. When the light faded, both Elena and Marcus felt changed. stronger, more complete. Now what? Marcus asked, rising to his feet. Elena looked around the clearing. Now we prepare. We will need shelter before winter comes. Food stores. Defenses. She grinned suddenly. And we will need to find others who need what we are building. Over the following weeks, they worked tirelessly. Marcus proved to be an excellent builder. He constructed a longhouse using timber from the forest, designed to withstand mountain winters. Elena discovered she could encourage the trees to grow in specific patterns, creating living walls that would strengthen over time. She could coax vegetables to grow even in the rocky soil, could find water sources deep underground. The earth responded to her touch like a willing partner. Other wolves began to arrive. The first was a young woman named Sarah who had been exiled from her pack for refusing an unwanted mate bond. She was thin, frightened, and carried scars both visible and hidden. Elena felt her approach before she saw her. The earth whispered of her coming. When Sarah stumbled into the clearing, exhausted and desperate, Elena was waiting. "You are safe here," Elena said simply. Sarah collapsed sobbing. Elena knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. She let her Luna power flow outward, not to control but to comfort. Sarah's sobs gradually quieted. She looked up at Elena with wonder. "I can feel it. Your presence. It does not hurt." "Pack bonds should never hurt," Elena said. "That is the first thing you need to learn." Sarah stayed. She pledged herself to Elena's growing pack and found purpose in helping to build their sanctuary. Next came two brothers, twins who had been deemed too weak by their alpha and left to die. Then an older male who had lost his mate and been cast out when grief made him unable to fight. A teenager who had never shifted properly and been labeled defective. Each one arrived broken. Each one left whole. Elena wove the pack bonds carefully, with consent, with respect. She could feel each member's pain and work to heal it. Not by erasing the memories, but by showing them they were not defined by their worst moments. Marcus became her right hand, training those who wanted to learn to fight. But this was not training built on dominance. He taught defense, strategy, teamwork. He taught them to be strong without being cruel. Sarah discovered a gift for healing. Under Elena's guidance, she learned to use herbs and her own gentle touch to mend both body and spirit. Pack grew. 10 members. Then 15. Then 20. Each one was a wolf the world had discarded. Each one found purpose and belonging in the mountains. Elena felt the weight of their trust, their hope, their healing. It was heavy, but it was also beautiful. This was what Mora had meant. Being a vessel for transformation. On the night of the full moon, 3 months after arriving at the stone circle, Elena gathered her pack. 23 wolves stood before her, looking healthier and stronger than they had in years. Some had arrived barely alive. Now they stood tall, their eyes bright, their spirits mended. "Tonight we perform the full binding," Elena announced. "Tonight we become not just individuals who share space, but a true family." She had learned the ritual from Mora's gifted knowledge. It was ancient, powerful, and required the willing participation of every member. They formed a circle within the standing stones. The moon shone bright above them. Elena stood at the center, her eyes glowing silver. "This bond will connect us all," she explained. "You will feel each other's joy and pain. You will know when your pack mates need help. You will be stronger together than you ever were apart." She paused, letting the weight of that settle. "But it must be chosen freely. If anyone here is uncertain, step back now. There is no shame in it." No one moved. Every wolf stood firm. Elena nodded, pride swelling in her chest. She began to speak the old words, words that resonated with power. The language was ancient, predating modern wolf packs, and it rolled off her tongue like music. As she spoke, silver light began to emanate from her body. It stretched outward, touching each pack member. Where it touched, it divided, became a thread that connected to the next wolf and the next. Soon they were all linked by glowing strands of silver light. Elena felt the moment the bonds clicked into place. 23 hearts beating as one. 23 spirits intertwined but not imprisoned. The connection was powerful but not painful. She could feel Marcus's steady strength, Sarah's gentle compassion, the twins' fierce protectiveness of each other. Every member of her pack, distinct and beautiful in their individuality, yet part of something greater. The wolves gasped as they felt it too. "This is what a true pack bond feels like," Elena said, her voice ringing with power. "Remember this feeling. This is what you deserved all along." The light faded slowly, sinking into their skin, into their hearts. But the bonds remained, invisible now but no less real. Sarah was the first to speak, tears streaming down her face. "I have never felt so connected and so free at the same time." Others echoed her sentiment. For wolves who had only known dominance and submission, this was revelation. Marcus stepped forward. "We need a name," he said. "Every pack has a name." Elena had been thinking about this. "We are the Silverwood Pack," she said. "Named for these mountains, for the silver moon that guides us, and for the new growth we represent." The pack howled their approval. The sound echoed off the mountains, wild and joyous and free. Far to the south, in Shadowfang territory, Alpha Kaine heard that howl. He stood on the balcony of his rebuilt throne room and listened to the distant sound. His expression was dark. "She is building an army," he said to his beta, a cruel wolf named Darius. Darius sneered. "An army of weaklings and outcasts. They pose no threat." Kaine was not so sure. He had felt the earthquake she caused, had seen the moonflowers that still grew in his throne room, defying all attempts to remove them. "Send scouts," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this new pack. Numbers, location, capabilities." Darius bowed and left to carry out the order. Kaine remained on the balcony, staring toward the mountains. He had underestimated Elena once. It had cost him his throne room and his absolute authority. Several pack members had left after that day. Not many, but enough to be noticed. They had walked away without permission, inspired by her defiance. He had executed 2 of them as examples. The rest he had not bothered to chase. But now she was gathering the broken ones, building something. And Kaine knew deep in his bones that this was not over. She would come for him eventually. The question was when and whether he would be ready. In the Silverwood territory, Elena felt Kaine's attention turn toward them. The earth whispered his intentions. "He knows about us now," she told Marcus. They stood together overlooking their growing settlement. "Good," Marcus replied. "Let him know. Let him worry." Elena smiled. "We are not ready to face him yet. We need more time, more numbers, more training." "How much time?" Elena closed her eyes, extending her awareness across the land. She could feel other wolves out there, suffering under cruel alphas. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. "As long as it takes," she said. "We will not move against Kaine until we are certain of victory. This is not about revenge. It is about liberation." She opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. "Send word carefully. Let it be known that there is a sanctuary in the Silverwood Mountains. Place where broken wolves can heal. Where strength is honored but cruelty is not." Marcus grinned. "You want to drain his pack from within." "I want to give wolves a choice," Elena corrected. "If they choose to stay with their alphas, that is their right. But if they want freedom, we will provide it." Over the next months the message spread. Whispered in the shadows of pack territories across the region. Silverwood. Sanctuary. A Luna who does not demand submission. Pack built on choice. More wolves came. Some arrived in groups, having fled together. Others came alone, broken and barely alive. Elena welcomed them all. The settlement expanded. They built more longhouses, a training ground, a healing lodge. Sarah trained others in the healing arts. Marcus organized patrols and defenses. The twins became expert hunters, teaching others to work together to bring down prey. Elena walked among them daily, strengthening pack bonds, resolving conflicts, healing old wounds. She was exhausted every night, but it was a good exhaustion. The exhaustion of work that mattered. Of building something real and lasting. By the time winter arrived, Silverwood Pack numbered 57 wolves. 57 souls who had been cast aside and found purpose. And in the south, Kaine's scouts brought troubling news. The Silverwood Pack was growing faster than expected. They were well organized, well trained, and fiercely loyal to their Luna. More concerning were the reports of Kaine's own pack members asking questions, wondering aloud if there might be another way. Kaine knew he could not let this continue. Elena had to be stopped before her ideas spread further, before his own pack began to fracture. He called a meeting of the regional alphas. 7 of them gathered in his rebuilt throne room, each one ruling their own territory through fear and dominance. "We have a problem," Kaine announced. "A rogue Luna building a pack in the Silverwood Mountains." The other alphas exchanged glances. "One Luna?" scoffed Alpha Ret of the Blood Moon Pack. "How is that a problem?" "This Luna destroyed my throne room with a thought," Kaine said coldly. "This Luna is gathering all the wolves we have cast out and building an army." That got their attention. "An army of weaklings," said Alpha Vera of the Nightshade Pack. "Hardly a threat." "An army of wolves who have nothing to lose," Kaine corrected. "Wolves who have been pushed to their limits and survived. Wolves who are learning that there is an alternative to our way of ruling." He let that sink in. "If we do not act, she will come for us. All of us. And she will offer our pack members a choice. How many do you think will stay when given the option to leave?" The silence in the room was heavy. Every alpha there had ruled through fear. Every one of them had wolves who would flee given the chance. "What do you propose?" asked Alpha Marcus of the Ironclaw Pack. "We strike first," Kaine said. "United. 7 packs against 1. We crush Silverwood before it becomes unstoppable." In the mountains, Elena woke from a nightmare. She had seen it clearly. 7 alphas marching toward Silverwood. An army that would dwarf her own pack. A battle that would soak the mountain snow with blood. She sat up, breathing hard. Beside her, Sarah stirred. "Luna, are you all right?" Elena stood and walked to the window of her longhouse. Dawn was breaking over the mountains. "They are coming," she said softly. "Who?" "The alphas. Kaine has convinced them we are a threat." Sarah's face paled. "How many?" "All of them." Elena turned to face her. "Wake Marcus. Gather the pack. We need to prepare for war." The war council gathered before dawn. 57 wolves filled the longhouse, their faces grim but determined. Elena stood before them, Marcus at her right hand, Sarah at her left. "Kaine is bringing 7 packs against us," Elena announced without preamble. "They will outnumber us 5 to 1, perhaps more." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Fear, yes, but also anger. These wolves had found sanctuary here. They would not surrender it easily. "We cannot win through strength alone," Elena continued. "But we do not need to." She stepped forward, her silver eyes catching the firelight. "We are not going to fight them." The murmurs turned to confused silence. Marcus frowned. "Luna, if we do not fight, they will destroy everything we have built." "I did not say we would not resist," Elena clarified. "I said we would not fight. There is a difference." She moved to the center of the room. "Kaine expects a battle. He expects us to meet his army with our own, to prove ourselves through violence. That is the old way. The way that has kept our world broken for centuries." Sarah stepped forward. "What are you proposing?" Elena smiled, and it was both gentle and fierce. "I am proposing we show them something they have never seen. A demonstration of what true Luna power can do." She looked at each pack member in turn. "But I need your trust. Complete trust. And I need your willingness to risk everything on a single moment." The twins spoke together as they often did. "We trust you, Luna. You gave us life when we had none, said the older wolf who had lost his mate. We will follow where you lead. One by one, every member of Silverwood Pack pledged their faith in Elena's plan. Even without knowing what it was, they believed in her. The weight of their trust was staggering, but Elena did not let it crush her. She let it flow through her, transform into strength. Then here is what we will do, she said. The 7 packs arrived 3 days later. They came from the south in a wave of fur and fangs and fury. Over 300 wolves, led by 7 alphas who had never known defeat. Kaine stood at the front, his eyes scanning the Silverwood settlement. He expected defenses, expected warriors arrayed for battle. Instead, he found every member of Silverwood Pack standing in a circle around the ancient stones. They were not in fighting stances. They were not even shifted to wolf form. They simply stood, holding hands, forming an unbroken ring. At the center stood Elena, her eyes closed, her face peaceful. What is this? Alpha snarled. Some kind of surrender. Kaine raised his hand, halting the advance. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed charged with energy. Spread out, he ordered. Surround them. Do not attack until I give the command. The 7 packs obeyed, forming a larger circle around Silverwood Pack. 300 wolves encircling 57. Kaine stepped forward. Elena, he called out. You cannot win this. Surrender now and I will grant your pack members mercy. They can return to their former packs or join mine. Elena's eyes opened. They glowed pure silver, brighter than Kaine had ever seen. I am not here to win, Kaine, she said, her voice carrying across the clearing with unnatural clarity. I am here to teach. She raised her hands. The Silverwood Pack members raised theirs as well, still linked in an unbroken circle. You asked me once what I am, Elena said. Let me show you. Power erupted from the circle. Not violent, not destructive. The war council gathered before dawn. 57 wolves filled the longhouse, their faces grim but determined. Elena stood before them, Marcus at her right hand, Sarah at her left. Kaine is bringing 7 packs against us, Elena announced without preamble. They will outnumber us 5 to 1, perhaps more. Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Fear, yes, but also anger. These wolves had found sanctuary here. They would not surrender it easily. We cannot win through strength alone, Elena continued. But we do not need to. She stepped forward, her silver eyes catching the firelight. We are not going to fight them. The murmurs turned to confused silence. Marcus frowned. Luna, if we do not fight, they will destroy everything we have built. I did not say we would not resist, Elena clarified. I said we would not fight. There is a difference. She moved to the center of the room. Kaine expects a battle. He expects us to meet his army with our own, to prove ourselves through violence. That is the old way. The way that has kept our world broken for centuries. Sarah stepped forward. What are you proposing? Elena smiled, and it was both gentle and fierce. I am proposing we show them something they have never seen. A demonstration of what true Luna power can do. She looked at each pack member in turn. But I need your trust. Complete trust. And I need your willingness to risk everything on a single moment. The twins spoke together as they often did. We trust you, Luna. You gave us life when we had none, said the older wolf who had lost his mate. We will follow where you lead. One by one, every member of Silverwood Pack pledged their faith in Elena's plan. Even without knowing what it was, they believed in her. The weight of their trust was staggering, but Elena did not let it crush her. She let it flow through her, transform into strength. Then here is what we will do, she said. The 7 packs arrived 3 days later. They came from the south in a wave of fur and fangs and fury. Over 300 wolves, led by 7 alphas who had never known defeat. Kaine stood at the front, his eyes scanning the Silverwood settlement. He expected defenses, expected warriors arrayed for battle. Instead, he found every member of Silverwood Pack standing in a circle around the ancient stones. They were not in fighting stances. They were not even shifted to wolf form. They simply stood, holding hands, forming an unbroken ring. At the center stood Elena, her eyes closed, her face peaceful. "What is this?" Alpha snarled. "Some kind of surrender." Kaine raised his hand, halting the advance. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed charged with energy. "Spread out," he ordered. "Surround them. Do not attack until I give the command." The 7 packs obeyed, forming a larger circle around Silverwood Pack. 300 wolves encircling 57. Kaine stepped forward. "Elena," he called out. "You cannot win this. Surrender now and I will grant your pack members mercy. They can return to their former packs or join mine." Elena's eyes opened. They glowed pure silver, brighter than Kaine had ever seen. "I am not here to win, Kaine," she said, her voice carrying across the clearing with unnatural clarity. "I am here to teach." She raised her hands. The Silverwood Pack members raised theirs as well, still linked in an unbroken circle. "You asked me once what I am," Elena said. "Let me show you." Power erupted from the circle. Not violent, not destructive. It poured outward in waves of silver light, washing over the assembled alphas and their packs. Where it touched, barriers fell. The forced pack bonds, the dominance holds, the fear-based submission that kept wolves chained to cruel alphas. All of it dissolved like mist in sunlight. Wolves gasped as they felt true freedom for the first time in their lives. The weight they had carried for so long, the invisible chains of alpha dominance, simply vanished. "What have you done?" Kaine roared, but his voice had lost its power. Elena's gift had severed his forced hold on his pack. She stepped out of the circle, approaching Kaine without fear. "I have given them what you never could," she said. "Choice." She turned to address all the wolves assembled. "Every wolf here can now choose freely. You are not bound by dominance or fear. You can return to your alphas if you wish. You can join Silverwood if that calls to you. You can strike out on your own and form new packs." Her voice rang with absolute conviction. "But you will never again be slaves to another's will." Silence blanketed the clearing. Then one wolf stepped forward. A female from Kaine's pack, one Elena recognized from her own time there. "I choose Silverwood," she said clearly. She walked across the divide and took her place beside Sarah. Another wolf followed. Then another. Within minutes, wolves from all 7 packs were making their choice. Some stayed with their alphas, those who had been treated well or who feared change. But more than half crossed the clearing to stand with Elena. Over 150 wolves chose freedom over familiarity. The alphas watched in horror as their packs disintegrated before their eyes. "This is treachery," Alpha Vera shrieked. "You cannot just leave." "Yes," Elena said simply. "They can. And they have." Kaine's face twisted with rage. He shifted into his massive wolf form and lunged at Elena. But he never reached her. Marcus intercepted him mid-leap, shifting as he moved. The 2 wolves collided with earth-shaking force. They rolled across the ground, snapping and snarling. Elena did not move to help Marcus. This was his choice, his fight. She trusted him to handle it. The other alphas moved to join the fight, but their remaining pack members blocked them. Wolves who had chosen to stay were not willing to die for their alpha's pride. Marcus and Kaine fought with savage intensity. Kaine was larger, more experienced. But Marcus fought with the strength of a wolf who had found something worth protecting. He fought not to dominate but to defend. The battle raged for long minutes. Both wolves bore wounds, blood staining the snow. Finally, Marcus caught Kaine's throat in his jaws. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to force submission. Kaine went still, recognizing defeat. Marcus held him for a long moment, then released him and backed away. He shifted back to human form, breathing hard. "It is over, Kaine," he said. "Your way of ruling ends today." Kaine shifted back as well, one hand pressed to his bleeding throat. He looked at the remnants of his pack, at the alphas who had come to support him. Less than half their combined forces remained. And those who stayed looked uncertain, questioning. You think you have won? Kaine spat blood. You have destroyed the order that has kept our world stable for generations. No, Elena said, walking to stand beside Marcus. I have destroyed the tyranny that called itself order. There is a difference. She addressed all the alphas. You can continue as you were, ruling through fear and dominance. But your wolves know now that there is an alternative. How long before they all leave? How long before you stand alone, alphas with no packs to lead? Alpha Rhett shifted uncomfortably. He had lost 2/3 of his pack in the last hour. What do you want from us? He asked. Change, Elena said simply. Treat your pack members as wolves worthy of respect. Led through wisdom, not cruelty. Earn loyalty instead of demanding it. She paused, letting her words sink in. Or step down and let someone else lead. Someone who understands that true strength lies in lifting others up, not grinding them down. It was Alpha Marcus of Ironclaw who spoke next, and his words surprised everyone. I am tired, he said quietly. Tired of ruling through fear. Tired of seeing the terror in my pack's eyes. He looked at his remaining wolves. I do not know how to be the kind of alpha you describe, but I am willing to learn. He knelt before Elena, and the gesture shocked the assembled wolves. An alpha kneeling to a Luna. Teach me, he said. Teach us all a better way. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she had hoped for. Not destruction but transformation. Stand up, she said gently. You do not kneel to me. We are equals, you and I. Different roles but equal worth. She helped him to his feet. Return to your pack. Begin to build trust instead of fear. And when you falter, when you slip into old habits, reach out. Silverwood will help guide you. One by one, the other alphas approached. Not all of them. Kaine refused, limping away with what remained of his pack. Alpha Vera followed him, her expression venomous. But 4 of the 7 alphas stayed. They pledged to learn, to change, to rebuild their packs on foundations of respect rather than dominance. As the sun reached its peak, the clearing began to empty. Wolves departed in smaller groups now, no longer massive packs bound by force but communities held together by choice. Those who had chosen Silverwood remained. Elena looked at her expanded pack. Over 200 wolves now. Too many for their current settlement. We will need to build more, Sarah said, reading her thoughts. More longhouses, more space. No, Elena said softly. We will need to build differently. She turned to face her pack. Silverwood was meant to be a sanctuary, a place of healing. It has served that purpose. But it cannot be the only place. She gestured to the assembled wolves. Many of you are healed now. Whole. Strong. And you have learned a different way of being pack. She smiled. It is time for some of you to go forth and build your own sanctuaries. To spread this new way across the land. A ripple of understanding moved through the crowd. Marcus stepped forward. You are sending us out. I am setting you free, Elena corrected. Free to build, to lead, to create communities based on what you have learned here. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You could lead a pack, Marcus. A good pack built on respect. Are you willing? Marcus looked stunned. Then his expression shifted to determination. Yes, I am. Over the next hours, Elena met with each wolf who felt called to leave and build anew. She helped them form groups, wolves who worked well together and shared similar visions. Sarah chose to stay in Silverwood, to continue the healing work. The twins decided to go together, to build a sanctuary in the eastern valleys. Marcus would take a group south, closer to where Kaine's territory had been. A direct challenge and a beacon of hope. By nightfall, Silverwood Pack had become 7 smaller packs. Each one carrying the seeds of change. Each one pledged to support the others, to form a network of sanctuaries across the land. Elena stood with the 50 wolves who had chosen to remain in Silverwood. They were the newest, the most wounded, those who still needed time to heal. "This is not an ending," she told them. "It is a beginning. The world is changing. We have started something that cannot be stopped." She looked up at the full moon rising over the mountains. "There will be resistance. Alphas like Kaine who refuse to change. But for everyone who resists, others will embrace this new path." She smiled. "And we will be here, a constant reminder that there is another way." In the ruins of his territory, Kaine stood alone. Only 12 wolves had chosen to stay with him. 12 out of nearly 80. His throne room, rebuilt once, now seemed empty and cold. The moonflowers still grew between the cracks, glowing softly. A permanent reminder of his failure. Darius approached cautiously. "Alpha, what do we do now?" Kaine looked at his beta. For the first time in his life he had no answer. His power was broken. His authority shattered. The old ways had failed him. "I do not know," he admitted. It was the first honest thing he had said in decades. Darius stared at him in shock. Then slowly the beta smiled. "Then perhaps it is time to learn something new." Kaine looked at the moonflowers. They had survived every attempt to destroy them. They had grown stronger, spreading despite his efforts to contain them. Maybe there was a lesson in that. Maybe strength was not about control after all. He knelt and touched one of the flowers gently. It did not burn him this time. It simply glowed brighter, as if welcoming his surrender. "Maybe," Kaine whispered. "Maybe it is." 5 years passed. The network of sanctuary packs grew to 20, then 30, then 50. Across the land, wolves learned that leadership could be earned through respect, that packs could thrive without cruelty. Some alphas resisted, but their packs dwindled as wolves chose freedom. Eventually, even the most stubborn began to change or stepped aside for those who would. Elena remained in Silverwood, the heart of the movement. She trained new Lunas, teaching them to wield their power with wisdom. She mediated disputes between packs. She continued to heal those who arrived broken. But she also learned to rest, to trust others to carry the work forward. On a crisp autumn morning, she stood at the edge of the stone circle. The settlement had grown beautiful over the years. Gardens flourished where she had encouraged them. Longhouses stood strong and warm. Children played in the clearings, the first generation to grow up knowing only the new way. Marcus visited that day, bringing news from the southern territories. "Kaine has stepped down," he reported. He turned leadership over to Darius. "The pack is small but healing." Elena smiled. "And Kaine?" He asked if he could visit Silverwood. To learn. To make amends. Elena considered this. The wolf who had tried to break her, now seeking redemption. "Tell him he is welcome," she said. "Everyone deserves a chance to heal." Marcus shook his head in wonder. 5 years ago, I never would have believed this possible. "Neither would I," Elena admitted. "But here we are." She looked at the mountains, the forests, the sky. "The earth cracked beneath Kaine when he tried to break me. It was showing us that the old foundations were unsound, that everything built on cruelty would eventually crumble." She turned back to Marcus. "We have built something new. Something that will last because it is built on choice and respect and genuine care." She paused, then grinned. "Of course it will never be perfect. There will always be challenges, always be wolves who struggle with these new ways. But that is the nature of growth." Marcus clasped her shoulder. "Thank you, Luna. For everything." "Thank you for being the first to believe," Elena replied. As Marcus departed, Sarah approached with a young girl in tow. "Luna, this is Mira. She arrived yesterday from the Western Territories. She has questions about Luna power." The girl looked nervous but hopeful. Elena saw herself in those eyes. A wolf who had suffered but refused to break. "Come," Elena said gently, leading her toward the stone circle. Let me tell you about the power that flows through us. About what it means to be a vessel of change. As they walked, moonflowers bloomed in their wake. The sun shone warm on the Silverwood Mountains. And in the distance, across valleys and forests and rivers, wolves of all kinds lived and thrived under a new order. An order built not on the strength to dominate, but on the courage to heal. Not on the power to break, but on the wisdom to mend. Elena had knelt before an alpha who thought submission was his right. Instead, she had risen. She had cracked the very ground beneath his feet. And from those cracks had grown something beautiful. A world where no wolf would ever be forced to kneel again. Where strength was measured not by who you could control, but by how many you could lift up. The story that began with one wolf refusing to break had become the story of a world learning to heal. And it was only just beginning.